The moon is an artificial alien-made structure.
Look up tonight, that tidy silver coin we've all stared at since childhood. What if it's not the gentle guardian of tides and poetry we think it is? What if it's a planet-sized piece of tech, parked there on purpose, by something that isn't from around here? And what if every space agency on Earth already knew?
Here's a fun one. The moon is 400 times smaller than the sun and 400 times closer to us. Bingo. Perfect eclipses. Every other moon in the solar system just can't pull that off. Astronomers shrug and call it coincidence. But when numbers line up like that, nature usually isn't rolling dice. Somebody's setting the table.
November 20th, 1969, Apollo 12 drops its 2.5-ton ascent stage onto the lunar surface. NASA expected a dull thud. Instead, the moon rang like a gong for almost an hour. Seismographs scribbled off the charts. The official report calls it unexpected resonance. Engineers whispered a simpler word, bell, and bells, they're usually hollow. The moon's average density is 3.34 grams per cubic centimetre. Earth's is 5.52. That's a canyon-sized gap. Try as they might, geologists can't squeeze that difference out of a shared origin story unless large chunks of the interior aren't rock at all, unless the moon is a cavity wrapped in an alloy shell wearing a dusty disguise. Natural satellites drift, inward they crash, outward they escape. The moon just doesn't. It creeps away at a lazy 3.8 centimetres per year, so stable it feels like station keeping. Add a near perfect circular orbit and what you've got looks less like gravity and more like autopilot. Tidal locking happens, sure, but the moon's lock is absolute. We see exactly 59%, never the far side. Russian astrophysicist Iosif Shklovsky once muttered it was too convenient, as if someone wanted that far hemisphere permanently hidden. Convenient for whom? Good question. Apollo sensors logged over 12,000 moonquakes. Some hit magnitude 5.5. Shockwaves raced outward. Apollo sensors logged over 12,000 moonquakes. Some hit magnitude 5.5. Shockwaves raced outward, then bounced back as if they'd struck an inner wall. On Earth, that only happens when waves hit a core mantle boundary. On the moon, it happens way too shallow. Translation, something metallic is down there. Maybe it's just porous, the skeptics say. Fair, but porosity doesn't explain hour-long reverberations or missing mass, and it definitely doesn't explain why NASA's 2012 Grail mission found mass concentrations shaped like perfect rectangles under impact craters, read internal reinforcement struts. When the crews came home, their boots and lander pads were coated in brassy, glassy dust. Geologists expected dull grey regolith. Instead, they got microscopic beads of titanium and iron, materials that, on Earth, only pop out of industrial smelters. In 1967, Lunar Orbiter 3 snapped a mile-high spire on the western edge of Mare Crisium. NASA's label, shadow play. Pixel-level enhancements show a tapering shadow across the basin floor, hinting at reflective metallic facets. Nature doesn't draft right angles, engineers do. Raw Chang'e 2 images, downloaded, then gone overnight. ESA's Smart 1 data, the titanium bands quietly vanished. NASA's high-resolution LRO strips of the far side, under review for years. Once is chance, twice is coincidence. 3 times is a pattern wearing a trench coat labelled suppression. In 1970, Soviet astrophysicists Vasin and Shcherbakov published a paper titled, "Is the Moon the Creation of Alien Intelligence?" They argued the moon is a hollowed-out planetoid, armoured with a 20-mile thick slag metal shell. NASA never refuted it. The paper just vanished from future footnotes. 40 years later, Japan's Kaguya mission found the crust is, guess what, 20 miles thick and laced with refractory metals. Coincidence must be exhausted by now. Carl Sagan once joked that to keep a planet docile, you'd park a transmitter at the L1 or L2 point and hit the right frequency. The moon sits at Earth's tidal lock point, and seismic data show it naturally hums at 0.004 Hz. Below human hearing. Tokyo researchers found ultra-low frequencies can tinker with circadian rhythms. Translation: the moon might be Earth's pacemaker, keeping civilizations on a 29.5-day heartbeat. Every Apollo crew lost radio contact when they passed over the far side. NASA blamed solar interference, except the sun was quiet during all 6 missions. Declassified transcripts mention other visitors, structures, and the code word Santa Claus. When the public versions came out, those lines were redacted. One small edit for man, one giant lie for mankind. Humans haven't gone back since 1972. Official excuse: money. But adjusted for inflation, today's NASA budget is half of Apollo's peak. Meanwhile, private firms quote lunar flyby tickets cheaper than a Manhattan condo. Still, no crewed craft leaves low Earth orbit. Something or someone doesn't want us knocking on that particular back door. In 2021, a former Lockheed contractor dropped a 3D CAD file on a fringe forum. It showed a cross-section of the moon labelled LS-1 control module. Titanium reinforced shell on the outside, decks inside marked power, comms, storage. File was yanked within hours. The contractor's LinkedIn evaporated, but the internet had mirrored it. Reverse engineers crunched the numbers: 1.6 billion cubic kilometers of interior space, enough for a small continent. And if any of this is news to you, hit subscribe. We're not even halfway down the rabbit hole, and the sea of tranquility is deeper than it looks. Amateur astronomers occasionally film a ripple sliding across the lunar disk, a lunar wave. Looks like a refresh scan on an old CRT. Debunkers tried and failed to reproduce it, slow the footage to 1% speed, and the wave clocks exactly 2.38 kilometers per second, matching the orbital velocity of the Apollo command module, as if the surface itself is refreshing to hold the illusion. In 2023, University of Maryland researchers melted synthetic regolith laced with 10% titanium and spun it in a vacuum centrifuge. The cooled alloy matched the moon's seismic reflectivity down to 4 decimal places. Their conclusion: the crust is artificial, or at least artificially reinforced. Nature Geoscience rejected the paper for being outside the scope. Read: too hot to print. Gravity mappers keep finding donut-shaped anomalies under every major crater. Conventional wisdom says impacts leave dense vertical spikes, not horizontal rings. Computer modelling says the only way to get rings is if pre-existing frames once deflected the shockwaves. Metal ribs again. Lunar regolith should be jagged and clingy. Apollo samples are until you dig below 3 meters. Down there, grains are round and magnetically sorted. That requires a rotating tumbler and a magnetic field orders of magnitude stronger than the moon's today. Industrial equipment, in other words, not geology. Radioisotope dating pegs the moon at 4.53 billion years, older than the oldest Earth rocks. Yet its biggest impact basins are only 3.9 billion years old. That leaves a 600 million year gap where the moon seems to have existed untouched, while the rest of the solar system was a demolition derby. Unless it wasn't here yet, unless it arrived after the chaos, already built, already armoured. In 1976, NASA's Viking lander photographed a boulder on Mars sporting a geometric indentation, the spitting image of 2001's monolith. Same year, Soviet Luna 24 brought home core samples laced with metallic fibers. Spectrographic signature, identical to the Mars cube. 2 planets, 1 manufacturer. Starting to spot the brand logo? Between 1540 and 1960, astronomers logged over 100 lunar transient phenomena, flashes on the far side. NASA calls them meteorites, yet automated surveys show 0 new flashes at those coordinates. The lights didn't stop, the alibi just got an upgrade. Gene Cernan sketched the Taurus Littrow Valley in 1972 and labelled a deep triangular shadow the Cathedral. Official Photo Atlas, 1973. That region is neatly cropped. Raw Hasselblad negatives, sealed until 2046. By then, anyone who remembers Apollo will be gone. How convenient. Quick back of the envelope. Moon's total volume is 2.2 times 10 to the power of 10 cubic kilometers. If the shell is 20 miles thick, the cavity is roughly 1.6 times 10 to the power of 10 cubic kilometers. Enough empty space for a Dyson sphere with parking included. That's not hollowish, that's hollow with a capital H. Stack every anomaly and you don't get a natural satellite. You get a planet-sized craft, a relay station, a beacon, a ship that arrived, parked, and tuned itself to Earth's biology like a cosmic chiropractor. And we've spent 50 years arguing over budgets instead of knocking on the front hatch. If you want us to crack open the leaked LS1 file next week and walk deck by deck, smash that like button. The file is huge, and your engagement tells the algorithm this story matters. Remember that 1:400 ratio? Stretch a string 400 moon diameters from Earth and you'll kiss the sun's surface. Coil the same string into a circle and you'll trace Earth's orbital circumference with 0.01% error. The moon isn't just tidally locked, it's metrically locked, an architectural flourish only an engineer obsessed with base 10 would leave. High resolution LRO photos sometimes show craters whose interior shadows vanish for a single frame. One frame out of thousands. The glitch aligns with Earth-Moon perigee. Simplest read, an internal mechanism tweaks external lighting to maintain the illusion of a passive rock. We're watching a live update patch. Every rocky planet shows signs of a molten youth. The moon should have hosted a global magma ocean for millions of years. Yet Apollo zircons crystallized at cool crust temperatures, exactly what you'd expect if the surface had been cast like concrete over an internal frame. Clementine probe maps reveal a strip of nearly pure titanium tracing the equator, straight as a ruler, 40 kilometers wide, 7,000 long. Natural differentiation can't draw that line. If you wanted to build a maglev around your artificial moon, that's where you'd lay the track. In 2018, China's Chang'e 4 relay craft dropped a probe on the far side. Seismographs rang for 3 hours. State media called the resonance unexpectedly musical. 3-hour reverb isn't a moonquake, it's a cathedral chord. India's Chandrayaan-1 found localized magnetic anomalies exactly where the LS1 schematics mark the main power spine. The anomalies pulse every 29 days. Know what else resets every 29 days? The synodic month. The moon has a heartbeat and we're just noticing. Debunkers love the no dust on the boot trope. To cry fake. Actually, the boot treads are sharp because the top 3 meters aren't dusty. They're fused glass bead pavement. Below that, it's loose. Natural stratification doesn't do layers like that. Industrial processes do. Apollo retroreflectors still bounce lasers back, but the reflection strength has grown 10% since 1969. Mirrors age, they don't get shinier, unless someone upgraded the coatings, unless someone's doing maintenance. Gravity maps show mascons up front, almost none out back. Statistically impossible under random bombardment. Simplest fix, the far side is reinforced against impacts, while the near side has sacrificial craters. Deliberate armour placement. Every official dataset slips into the artificial paradigm the moment you stop forcing a natural one. The moon's density, seismic echoes, orbital steadiness, chemical quirks, magnetic pulses, missing magma ocean, and endless photographic redactions all point the same direction. It's time to stop asking if the moon is artificial and start asking who parked it here. We started with a simple question. What if the moon is a lie? Now we've got a mountain of data saying it's the biggest truth ever hidden in plain sight. The ringing bell, the hollow math, the impossible orbit, the laser reflector brightening, the magnetic heartbeat, none of those are quirks, they're features. The moon isn't a moon, it's a machine older than life on Earth and still humming. So look up tonight. That silver disc isn't just watching over you, it's watching you. And maybe, just maybe, it's waiting for us to notice. The question is, are we ready to knock, or will we keep pretending it's just a rock? If this video rattled your reality, share it. Tag the friend who still thinks we went to the moon just to play golf. And if you want part 2, where we open the LS1 file and walk deck by deck, subscribe and ring the bell. Everything we've covered today, it's only the front porch light.
Thank you for watching. Until next time. What if everything you've been told about humanity's place in the cosmos is a lie? What if the race to the moon was just the public-facing chapter of a much deeper, more clandestine story? In 2002, a British hacker named Gary McKinnon broke into 97 US military and NASA computers. He was looking for proof of UFOs, a ghost in the machine. What he claimed to find was far more shocking, evidence of a secret American space fleet, a program he said was codenamed Solar Warden. He told reporters he found ship-to-ship transfer logs and documents listing non-terrestrial officers. The US government pursued him for a decade, accusing him of committing the biggest military computer hack of all time. McKinnon has always maintained he was just looking for the truth. This incident is a loose thread in a much larger tapestry of myth, testimony and speculation. It's our entry point into one of the most profound conspiracy theories of our time. The allegation that a hidden faction of humanity, using technology decades beyond what we see publicly, has already left Earth behind. They've allegedly built a breakaway civilization operating in the shadows of our solar system, complete with their own fleet, off-world colonies, and even alliances with extraterrestrial species. This is the story of the secret space program. The core idea of the breakaway civilization is as simple as it is staggering. The theory suggests that a select group within military, corporate, and political power structures secretly developed radical technologies like anti-gravity and free energy and used them to create a separate, parallel human society. This society operates completely off-world, independent of any public oversight, with alleged bases on the moon and colonies on Mars. It's a civilization that supposedly cracked interstellar travel while the rest of us are still calculating rocket fuel. Proponents trace its origins to the final days of World War II. According to the law, some Nazi scientists and SS officers didn't just surrender or escape to South America. They allegedly fled to a secret Antarctic base called Neuschwabenland. The story goes that in the frozen wastes, they continued their advanced aerospace research, possibly even finding alien technology buried under the ice. While this Nazi-Antarctica connection is widely considered a debunked conspiracy theory, and historical records show that military operations like the US Navy's Operation High Jump were standard military exercises. This story forms the foundational myth of the secret space program. The idea is that these scientists and their knowledge were later absorbed into the United States through Operation Paperclip. While history confirms that over 1,600 German scientists were brought to the US to work on conventional rocketry, SSP theorists allege their real work continued in the shadows, laying the technological groundwork for a secret fleet. If a program this massive exists, how could it possibly stay secret? The answer, according to believers, is a slow but steady stream of whistleblowers who have risked their careers and allegedly their lives to bring pieces of the puzzle into the light. Gary McKinnon's alleged discovery of Solar Warden is just one piece. Over the years, others have come forward with even more elaborate claims. Figures like Corey Goode and Randy Kramer have popularized the idea of a 20 and back tour of duty. They claim they were recruited into a secret space fleet, served 2 decades in off-world conflicts, and were then age regressed and memory wiped before being returned to civilian life just moments after they left. Goode speaks of serving in a multinational fleet that polices the solar system and interacts with dozens of alien species. These stories are incredibly detailed, describing life on Martian colonies, the physics of advanced spacecraft, and the complex politics of a galaxy teeming with life.
More recently, the conversation has shifted from obscure internet forums to the halls of the US Congress. In 2023, David Grush, a former high-ranking intelligence officer, testified under oath before a House Oversight Subcommittee. Grush alleged that the US is in possession of non-human biologics and has been secretly reverse engineering crashed craft of non-human origin for decades. He spoke of a multi-decade program hidden from Congress and the American people. While Grush admitted he hadn't seen alien craft or bodies himself, he claimed to have interviewed dozens of high-level officials who had direct knowledge of these secret programs. His testimony, given under penalty of perjury, sent shockwaves through the public, lending a new level of seriousness to claims that were once easily dismissed. Okay, let's pump the brakes and plant our feet firmly on the ground for a second. The stories are compelling, and the idea of a hidden human civilization among the stars is profoundly alluring. However, it's vital to state that as of late 2025, there is no verifiable public evidence to support the existence of a breakaway civilization, a program called Solar Warden, or secret human colonies on Mars. The testimonies of individuals like Corey Goode and Randy Kramer are entirely anecdotal. They haven't provided any physical or documentary evidence to back up their extraordinary claims of serving in 20 and back programs, and their accounts are widely seen as unsubstantiated. Similarly, Gary McKinnon's claims about non-terrestrial officers have never been corroborated. The US government has always denied such a program exists, and no official documents have ever surfaced to support his story. Even the bombshell testimony of David Grush, while historic, isn't proof by itself. Grush was reporting what other officials had allegedly told him, not what he had personally witnessed. In response, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO, has stated its investigations have found no verifiable evidence that any UAP sighting represented extraterrestrial activity, or that the US government has ever had access to extraterrestrial technology. The AARO report concluded that most sightings were misidentified ordinary objects, and that the alleged hidden programs either didn't exist or were misidentified conventional national security programs. To be clear, there are definitely secret space programs. The US Space Force operates highly classified assets like the X-37B, an uncrewed robotic spaceplane that spends years in orbit on secret missions. But the known purpose of these programs revolves around national security, satellite deployment, and technology testing, a world away from the alleged Solar Warden fleet policing the solar system. The gap between what is claimed and what can be proven remains a vast, unbridged chasm. We're navigating a labyrinth of official denials, incredible claims, and unsettling questions. If you find this investigation as fascinating as we do, let us know what you think is really going on in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the boundaries of what's known, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. If we follow the narrative laid out by believers, the secret space program didn't develop this technology in a vacuum. A core part of the theory is that their rapid advancement was only possible through alliances with extraterrestrial civilizations. This idea gained shocking prominence in 2020 when Haim Eshed, a retired Israeli general and the former head of Israel's space security program for nearly 3 decades, made a series of wild public statements. Eshed claimed that governments, including the US and Israel, were in contact with a galactic federation of aliens. He alleged that secret agreements were in place, including a joint human-alien underground base on Mars, and that disclosure was being held back to prevent mass hysteria until humanity was ready. Like the other claims, Eshed's statements have never been backed up by any official sources or physical evidence, but his high-ranking military background made them difficult for many to simply ignore. This alleged cooperation is supposedly the source of the advanced technology. The theory connects claims of reverse engineering crashed UFOs, like those David Grush mentioned in his testimony, to the physics-defying craft seen by military pilots. The famous Tic Tac UAP witnessed by US Navy pilot David Fravor in 2004 is a perfect example. The object performed maneuvers impossible for any known aircraft, demonstrating instant acceleration with no visible means of propulsion. For secret space program believers, the Tic Tac isn't an alien craft from a distant star. They see it as a likely product of the breakaway civilization, a vehicle built by humans using technology they got from these secret alliances. When you weave it all together, the story goes something like this. A remnant of Nazi-era science, supercharged by Operation Paperclip, got its hands on non-human technology. This allowed them to build early anti-gravity craft and start exploring the solar system in secret. Along the way, they met both friendly and hostile alien species, eventually forging alliances with some, like the supposed Galactic Federation. This cooperation led to a technology boom, allowing for an interstellar fleet, off-world colonies, and the birth of a breakaway civilization, a new branch of humanity that won the space race before the public even knew it had really started. If any of this were true, it forces us to ask the biggest question of all. Why the secrecy? Why create a shadow society and hide the single greatest achievement in human history, our expansion into the stars? Proponents offer a few key explanations. The first is technological and economic stability. The introduction of so-called free energy and anti-gravity would instantly make the global energy and transportation industries obsolete. It would shatter the world economy, which is built on the scarcity of fossil fuels. The powers that control this tech, the theory goes, wouldn't risk losing that control. The second reason is societal and cultural panic. Jaime Shed himself mentioned this, claiming the Galactic Federation believed humanity wasn't ready and that revealing their existence would cause mass hysteria. The revelation that we are not alone and that a hidden human elite has been working with aliens for decades would upend every religious, social, and political structure on Earth. Governments would lose their authority and the story of human history would crumble. Finally, there's the issue of military power. The group that controls a fleet of interstellar warships automatically becomes the dominant power on and off Earth. Secrecy is the ultimate strategic advantage. It prevents a new kind of arms race and ensures this breakaway group can operate without any challenge or oversight from the nations and populations they left behind. Some theorists even speculate that a slow, controlled disclosure is already happening, with events like congressional hearings and Pentagon reports designed to gradually get the public used to a new reality, preventing the shock and chaos of a sudden reveal. So, what have we uncovered? We have a case file filled with explosive whistleblower testimonies from hackers and alleged super soldiers to high-ranking intelligence officials. We have a trail of historical breadcrumbs leading from the ice of Antarctica to the halls of Congress, and we have a compelling narrative of a hidden human civilization, secret treaties with aliens, and technology that beggars belief. But on the other side, we have a stark lack of verifiable evidence. We have official, on-the-record denials from the very government departments accused of this cover-up. We have stories that, while fascinating, remain just that, stories without the physical proof demanded by scientific scrutiny. The secret space program theory forces us to confront the nature of belief and the line between possibility and proof. Are we living alongside a hidden human civilization that conquered the stars decades ago, rendering our daily lives a pale shadow of what humanity has truly achieved? Or is this the most elaborate myth of the 21st century, a modern folklore born from a deep distrust of authority and a profound desire to believe we're part of a grander cosmic story? The search for answers continues. What do you believe? Is the truth still hidden in classified government files, or is it just a fantasy? Join the conversation in the comments below, and if you appreciated this deep dive, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more investigations into the unknown. I woke up one morning and a profound, chilling dread settled over me. My mother, who I'd spoken to just yesterday, had been dead for a decade. I found her obituary, funeral photos, condolence cards, undeniable proof of a past I didn't live. Either I had slipped into a world where Mom passed in 2014, or my brain had irrevocably snapped.
tonight, we're not talking about abstract theories. We're talking to real people who swear they're living in the wrong universe, and the evidence some of them present is disturbingly good. The moment everything changed. Imagine your life shifting in an instant. For Fernando Valencia, it happened in 2016. He walked into his office and greeted the receptionist, but she looked at him like a ghost. Security escorted him out. HR told him he'd been terminated in 2012, 4 years ago, after a car crash left him comatose. The problem? Fernando remembered the last 4 years perfectly. He had the pay stubs to prove it. But when he looked closer, the company watermark was different and his ID didn't scan. He was in his office, but it wasn't his office anymore. Or consider Lena Kay, who logged into her Gmail to find 5 years of emails she never sent or received. Acceptance letters to universities she never applied to, photos with roommates she'd never met, and order confirmations for items she didn't own. Her past had been rewritten, and she was the only one who noticed. These aren't sci-fi plots, they're stories from ordinary people who hit a glitch in reality. They call it a slide, a jarring transition to another version of reality. The most disturbing part is the hyper-specific detail of the mismatches. A scar that moves, a house painted a different colour, or a child insisting their father never wore glasses. It's these small discrepancies that make you question everything. Communities of these sliders on subreddits like r/parallel universe grow by thousands each year, with members desperately looking for a way back home. Why the Mandela effect is just the tip. Most of us know the Mandela effect from harmless examples, like remembering the Berenstain Bears as Berenstein. It's a quirky memory glitch, but when that glitch inserts traumatic events, like the deaths of loved ones, it becomes terrifying. In 2019, hundreds of New Zealanders vividly recalled a major earthquake in 2013, describing specific damage and details. Yet according to all seismic data, that earthquake never happened. Neuroscientist Dr. Donna Liu has shown that memory is reconstructive. Every time you recall an event, you resave a slightly altered version. This explains some variance in collective memory. But the Mandela effect isn't random drift, it's large groups of people giving the exact same wrong answer with unwavering confidence. Skeptics point to social reinforcement. Someone posts a false memory on Reddit and a false consensus spreads. This explains some milder effects, but it breaks down for memories that predate the internet. People born in the 1960s remember Berenstein long before any online forum existed to influence them. The parallel universe camp argues these aren't memory errors at all. They're crosstalk between nearby worlds. You aren't misremembering, you're remembering a different cosmos correctly. The physics you were never taught in school. The concept of parallel universes isn't just science fiction, it's a debated area of theoretical physics. In 1957, Hugh Everett III's many worlds interpretation (MWI) proposed that every quantum event causes the universe to split. Schrödinger's cat isn't alive or dead, it's alive in one universe and dead in another, with both being equally real. It's an infinitely branching tree of realities. Cosmologist Dr. Max Tegmark goes further, proposing a hierarchy of parallel universes where every mathematically possible structure exists as its own universe. This includes universes where the laws of physics are different. String theory introduces brane worlds, where our universe is a brane or slice floating near others in higher dimensions. If these branes were to touch, it could create a ripple, potentially allowing a memory or consciousness to leak through. Finally, inflationary cosmology suggests our universe is one of countless bubble universes, each with its own physical laws. While travel between them is thought to be impossible, the bizarre principle of quantum tunneling might allow for information and perhaps consciousness to hop between these realities. No experiment has confirmed this, but absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Living with a borrowed life. Imagine waking up next to a stranger you're supposedly married to. Your dog is now a cat. Your city apartment now overlooks a river that wasn't there yesterday. This was the reality for Chris P., a Canadian trucker who experienced months of crippling derealization, feeling like an imposter in his own life. Most experiencers don't want fame, they want coping strategies.
Therapists often diagnose them with depersonalization or dissociative disorders, but medication only dulls the anxiety without fixing the disconnect. So they turn to each other in online groups, trading hacks for navigating their fractured realities. They keep reality journals, screenshot everything, and record date-stamped voice memos as anchors. The logic is terrifying. If they slide again, they'll have proof they aren't crazy. Some report multiple slides, with minor changes accumulating over time. They stop trying to convince others and live with a constant, exhausting vigilance. A fascinating minority, however, learns to embrace it, treating life like an endlessly shifting choose-your-own-adventure book. But building a stable life is nearly impossible when the ground beneath your feet is constantly rearranging itself. Can you slide on purpose? Online forums are filled with rituals for inducing a slide, from mirror gazing to manifestation grids. A dedicated few claim success. The common denominator seems to be a combination of extreme emotional intensity, focused intention, and a distinct environmental trigger like a flash of lightning or the thrum of an MRI. It's as if these moments crack open reality, allowing for a jump. Quantum physicist Dr. Yasunori Nomura speculates that consciousness itself might act as a measurement device, selecting an adjacent branch of the multiverse to inhabit. The catch: you can't control where you land. Some report precursor dreams, feeling like sneak previews of an alternate reality, only to wake up inside them weeks or months later. Even declassified CIA gateway documents from the 1980s explored using meditation and binaural beats to alter consciousness and resonate with other realities. The bottom line is, there is no verified, repeatable method for sliding, and if you do try, be prepared. A go bag with a passport, cash, and a flash drive of your documents might be necessary. The skeptic's counterpunch. For every wild theory, there is a counterpunch. Memory is fallible. A 2015 study showed that 70% of volunteers recalled fabricated childhood events after just a gentle suggestion. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus famously convinced people they'd met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, an impossibility. If professionals can implant memories in a lab, imagine the power of Reddit threads and TikTok clips operating at scale. Occam's razor suggests the simplest explanation is usually correct. People misremember, and social media amplifies these errors into a false consensus. No multiverse required. Neurologically, many slider experiences can be explained by phenomena like déjà vu, jamais vu, and depersonalization. Conditions like temporal lobe epilepsy can also make the familiar feel foreign. Yet, even skeptics struggle with residue, physical evidence that contradicts current reality. The classic example is the Fruit of the Loom logo. Millions recall a cornucopia in the logo, which the company says never existed. But a 1973 trademark filing for the logo describes exactly that. This is where simple explanations start to buckle. Science demands repeatability. Until we can slide volunteers under lab conditions, parallel universes remain a hypothesis. But labeling every experiencer as delusional is intellectually dishonest. The wise stance is an agnostic one. Keep investigating without prejudgment. How to test if you're in the wrong world. Could you be living in a borrowed life? Here's a quick mental checklist. First, search, when did Nelson Mandela die? If you remember his death in prison in the 1990s, you're experiencing the classic Mandela effect. In this reality, he died in 2013. Next, check your anatomy. Are your kidneys above or below your ribcage? Many sliders recall them being higher, but in this reality, they sit lower toward your back. Check pop culture and branding. Is it Chick-fil-A or Chick-fil-A? Skechers or Skechers? Did the droid C-3PO have one silver leg, or were both gold? Geographically, is New Zealand northeast or southeast of Australia? For many, their mental map has shifted. To track slides, document everything, screenshot your phone's interface, record voice memos describing your surroundings, but beware of confirmation bias. Write down your prediction before you check the facts. Finally, if you discuss this, ask open-ended questions like, what do you recall about this jingle, to avoid implanting false memories. If you confirm a slide, stay calm. Panic clouds observation. Treat it like fieldwork. Note every detail and adapt. Tell me your story. Have you experienced something that made you question reality? A subtle, unsettling glitch in the Matrix? Drop your story in the comments below. I read every one, and the most compelling stories might get their own follow-up video. If you have photos, screenshots, or any residue from an alternate past, please share them. Let's crowd solve this cosmic glitch. And if this is your first night in the wrong universe, you are not alone. Where do we go from here? We stand caught between what we swear was real and what the world insists is true. Are these discrepancies just psychological hiccups amplified by the internet? Or are we brushing sleeves with neighbouring realities? Science hasn't slammed the door. Many worlds and brain worlds allow for multiple versions of reality to exist. What we lack is a way to track consciousness across these shifts. Until then, these deeply personal, terrifying accounts remain our most compelling data. If you are unaffected by these shifts, treat these stories as a prompt to remember that memory is fragile and certainty is a luxury. Back up your photos and cherish your loved ones. And if you are affected, know this: questioning reality is not madness, it is the frontier of human curiosity. We may never definitively prove a slide, but every honest account chips away at the wall between the possible and the proven. Keep your eyes open and your mind willing to consider the impossible, because somewhere another version of you is watching this, wondering if they're the one who jumped. What if the evidence you found that proved aliens were among us was actually just bait? And what if every step you took to warn the world simply tightened the screws on your own mind? Tonight we're peeling back the layers of the disturbing true story of Paul Benowitz, a brilliant physicist who believed he'd stumbled upon an interstellar invasion. It's the story of a man whose own intellect was weaponized against him by an Air Force office that, rather than debunking his claims, decided to break him. This isn't just a conspiracy theory, it's a documented case of psychological warfare waged by a government against one of its own citizens, with a devastating human cost. In 1979, Paul Benowitz wasn't some eccentric in a tinfoil hat. He was a respected electrical physicist running his own successful lab, Thunder Scientific, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He built components for NASA, held patents on sensitive equipment, and was a trusted defense contractor. He was a man of science and logic who lived a comfortable life just miles from Kirtland Air Force Base. Then came one fateful night. While calibrating antennas on his roof, his equipment picked up something extraordinary, a pulsed signal that jittered across every frequency. It wasn't military traffic or a television broadcast. This signal was distinct, almost alive, pulsing with an unnerving rhythm, as if something enormous overhead were pinging the ground. Most engineers might log the anomaly and move on, but Paul Benowitz stayed up all night, meticulously documenting its every nuance, convinced he'd stumbled onto a surveillance grid, but not a human one. Weeks later, a more disturbing pattern emerged. Ranchers near Dulce, New Mexico, began reporting horrific cattle mutilations. These weren't predator kills, they involved surgical precision, with bloodless incisions and organs removed with impossible neatness. The local sheriff was baffled, but Benowitz saw a sinister connection to the strange signals he was tracking. His curiosity now a civic duty, Paul drove into the wilderness. Over Archuleta Mesa, he filmed glowing orbs dancing in the night sky. Back in his lab, he matched their strobe rate to the very pulses thumping through his oscilloscope. It was the same cadence. To Paul, this was a chain of evidence pointing to an intelligent, non-human technology. Convinced he'd uncovered a profound threat, Benowitz typed a detailed technical memo and walked it into Kirtland Air Force Base. He asked the commander, "Do you need help defending New Mexico, or do I?" The officers thanked him, stamped his report secret, and sent him home. Paul felt a surge of patriotic pride. He couldn't have known that the Air Force had just opened a file on him ominously labelled Cuckoo Benowitz, useful. Soon after, Special Agent Richard Doty of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI, knocked on Paul's door. Doty, the very picture of trustworthiness, was officially tasked with protecting classified technology, but unofficially he handled civilian UFO nuisances. He flashed his badge and said, "Mr. Benowitz, some of us believe you're onto something big." Paul was overcome with relief. Someone was finally taking him seriously. Doty became his confidant and handler, feeding him a carefully curated blend of tantalizing fiction and mundane fact. He provided grainy photos of saucers, fake autopsy reports of aliens, and memos about a secret treaty, all stamped confidential or top secret. These clandestine meetings in dimly lit parking garages fed a powerful narrative that Paul was the civilian hero they had been waiting for. Paul swallowed it whole. After all, who would go to such elaborate lengths just to fool one lone engineer? The scale of the deception made it seem impossible to be anything but the truth. The true genius of the operation was that the disinformation wasn't all fantasy. Doty fed Benowitz authentic flight test schedules, genuine radar equations, and real technical specs for military hardware. This ensured Paul's analytical mind couldn't dismiss them, but carefully interspersed were poison pills of comic book level nonsense designed to warp his perception of reality. Overnight, Paul's living room transformed into a chaotic war room with walls covered in corkboards and yarn connecting alleged underground tunnels and hybrid breeding vats. His scientific mind was now consumed by a narrative of cosmic betrayal. His wife, Myrna, begged him to rest, but he was too far gone, warning her to pack a go-bag for when the alien pulse knocked out the grid. Unable to break through his paranoia, Myrna began sleeping at her sister's, a heartbreaking acknowledgement that the man she married was being systematically replaced by a terrified stranger. By 1983, the rumours of Paul's files reached John Lear, a famed ufologist and son of the Learjet inventor. Lear taped hours of interviews with Paul, listening to his increasingly elaborate tales. Lear then added his own dramatic flourishes, vats of human body parts and security doors labelled Level 7, and posted a summary on an early online bulletin board. Overnight, the obscure town of Dulce became the Vatican of alien conspiracy theory. The story exploded. Bill Moore, a best-selling author on the Roswell incident, promised Paul a lucrative book deal. Paul saw Moore as another powerful ally. What he didn't know was that Moore later admitted he was acting on instructions from the Air Force. His mission was to steer Paul deeper into fantasy, ensuring no serious reporter could sort fact from fiction. The government had effectively weaponized the UFO community to gaslight an already vulnerable man. Lear and Moore gained fame from the story, while the Dulce base, a complete fiction, became embedded in the public consciousness. The constant psychological pressure finally pushed Paul Benowitz past his breaking point. In June 1988, he barricaded himself inside his home, placing guns on every windowsill, convinced grey aliens were scaling the walls to abduct his family. For him, this was the final battle. Albuquerque SWAT teams spent 6 hours talking him down. They sedated him and wheeled him into a psychiatric hospital. His heartbroken wife Myrna signed the committal papers. When he emerged 3 months later after electroshock therapy and lithium, the vibrant intellectual spark that had defined his life was gone. He still peered at the sky, but his oscilloscope stayed dark. His once proud antennas sagged against the New Mexico sky, a tragic metaphor for his shattered mind. Friends said he was a hollow shell. He died twice, once when that psychiatric ward door locked behind him, and again, officially, in 2003. If this story feels like a warning bell for our own times, please subscribe so it isn't forgotten, and comment below, what would you have done if Agent Doty, with his polite smile and eyes-only folder, knocked on your door? Could you spot the lie stitched between two truths? The proof of this orchestrated tragedy surfaced years later. Declassified Air Force memos from 1989 unequivocally proved the campaign against Benowitz was a formal operation codenamed Project Beta. Its objective was stated in cold, bureaucratic prose: contain citizen investigator Benowitz through gradual exposure to engineered datasets until credibility collapses. Doty's superiors actively funded the operation, budgeting $42,000 for audio, visual aids and document fabrication, a line item you can find in the National Archives. It's all there in black and white. Yet, when reporters asked the Pentagon for comment, a spokesman offered the dismissive response. Mr. Benowitz was a private citizen. The Air Force has no comment on private delusions. There were no hearings, no reprimands, and no apology offered to his widow, who still lives in that same adobe house, its windows now perpetually covered. The institutional silence remains deafening. Why go to such cruel lengths? The answer lies in the genuine threat Benowitz posed. He was a cleared defence contractor with a legitimate electronics company. If he kept digging, he might have exposed Project Aquarius, an actual classified program testing advanced plasma drones and stealth aircraft out of Kirtland. The signals he detected weren't from UFOs, they were the electronic signatures of top secret military craft. Instead of a court order, which would draw attention, they employed a more insidious strategy. They flooded him with so much noise that he would never be able to find the real signal again. It's a classic intelligence technique. Jam the channel until the operator can no longer discern a genuine signal from the overwhelming static. They didn't need him to stop looking, they just needed him to look in the wrong direction. And they succeeded, tragically. The Dulcie base, a phantom born of a psyop, did not die with Paul Benowitz. The myth spread through the internet, becoming a foundational tale for a new generation of conspiracy theorists. It morphed into TV shows depicting firefights between soldiers and aliens. Today, you can buy Dulcie Base hoodies, a testament to its enduring cultural footprint. Every retelling peels further from its tragic origin. One brilliant man who trusted his government and lost his mind. The meme lives on, offering a simple narrative for the chaos of black-budget science. Meanwhile, real secret programs like PRISM and X-Keyscore slide by without a ripple of public concern. The manufactured myth distracts us from the more mundane and often more dangerous truths lurking in dense budget reports. Look at the shiny alien battle, and don't pay attention to the quiet consolidation of power happening in front of you. In an age of deepfakes and sophisticated AI, how many Paul Benowitzes are scrolling through their feeds right now, being imperceptibly nudged down a rabbit hole? The modern day Agent Doty could be an algorithm, feeding you exactly the conspiracy that confirms your deepest fears while burying the verifiable truth. The only vaccine is active humility, the ability to pause and question, especially when evidence feels too perfect. When every puzzle piece clicks neatly into place, it's often a sign that someone is being paid to make it fit. Paul's tragedy isn't just a Cold War relic, it was a terrifyingly successful beta test for the information age we live in. It's a stark warning that the most dangerous walls are not the ones aliens might scale, but the ones built around our own minds. So, the next time you see a grainy clip of a UFO, remember Paul Benowitz, the man who listened too well, trusted too eagerly, and was systematically erased so a classified drone could keep flying under the radar. His oscilloscope is silent, but the potential for manipulation is stronger than ever, waiting for the next curious mind to decide if the pattern they see is proof or cleverly laid bait. If this story rattled you, share it, because the cruelest trick isn't making you believe in aliens, it's making you doubt your own sanity, so the real truth stays safely buried. Picture the Nevada desert at twilight, a sprawling canvas of dust devils, cracked earth, and a sky so impossibly vast it feels like a cosmic joke. The supposed deal was simple. We get alien technology that lets us build stealth bombers decades ahead of schedule. In return, they get unrestricted access to our military bases and an endless supply of fresh strawberries. Tonight, we delve into the incredible account of Charles Hall and the beings he called the Tall Whites, entities so pale they seem to glow in the moonlight, and so tall they could peer over the tail fin of a B-52 bomber. You're about to hear every alleged detail, every skeptical counter-argument, and every bureaucratic loophole that was apparently left just wide enough for a 9-foot-tall visitor to slip through.
When Charles Hall reported for duty at Nellis Air Force Base in 1965, he was expecting a tour defined by dust, atomic history, and the lonesome drift of tumbleweeds. What he got instead was a shack so remote, his superiors sarcastically dubbed it Dreamland. His first week was a lesson in extremes. Daytime temperatures soaring to 120 degrees, nights plummeting to 30, and a single bizarre canyon that would inexplicably flash freeze to 40 below. And every evening, as the sun went down, his weather instruments would go completely haywire. It happened at the precise moment that paper white figures began to glide across the dry lake bed, leaving no footprints, casting no shadows, and trailing only a faint clean scent of ozone. He tried to log it as a temperature inversion, but his hand trembled as he wrote. One night, one of the figures stopped, turned, and raised a slender arm to point directly at him. Hall wasn't a UFO fanatic. He was a math student from Wisconsin, serving his country to pay for his education. But the pattern held night after night. The sun would dip below the horizon, his instruments would spike, and the apparitions would materialize on the salt flats.
On his 14th night, he stepped outside to adjust a barometer and came face to face with a woman. She stood over 8 feet tall, with hair like spun glass and eyes the colour of glacial ice, leaning casually against his truck.
She didn't speak a word. Instead, a sentence bloomed in his mind. Your species records pressure. We record courage. Continue. And with that, she folded her long limbs and simply vanished into the desert darkness. When he told his commanding officer, the order was clear. File a report on a dust storm and get some sleep. Welcome to the night shift with the tall whites. The next morning, a windowless bus arrived, delivering 8 airmen with no name tags, no rank insignia, just dark sunglasses and faces scrubbed clean of all emotion. They took Hall's standard issue clipboard and replaced it with one stamped top secret /magic. Then they escorted him to a Quonset hut he had never seen before.
Inside, a sweating major sat at a table with 3 tall whites, their massive frames folded uncomfortably beneath the low ceiling.
Congratulations, the major said. You're the new weather observer for Project Icecap. They prefer the cold.
The job was the same. Release weather balloons, log wind data. But now, his every reading was monitored by a silent, frisbee-sized disc that hovered overhead without noise or propulsion, emitting only that familiar static-like smell. When Hall asked why they needed weather reports, the one they called the teacher replied with a thought: storms hide our children. Over the following weeks, he learned their hierarchy. The children were around 6.5 feet tall. The adults stood a full 9 feet, and the elders reached 10 feet, moving with a slow, deliberate grace. Their skin, he would later recall, felt like cold, damp chamois leather, and their hearts beat only once every 10 seconds. They could breathe out air, but preferred it thin. The military had reportedly built them apartments inside a decommissioned tungsten mine, 6,200 feet up a mountain. 9 stories down, the hallways were lit by glowing phosphorescent moss. Supply shipments labelled meteorological equipment arrived, but they were filled with strawberries, vanilla extract, and 70mm film. And the payment for all this hospitality, a crystal the size of a man's thumb, capable of powering a Humvee for a year with nothing but a single watch battery. Hall once saw one of their scout crafts wobble in the sky, tear like paper, and then vanish completely. We bend light, the teacher explained. You simply haven't mastered the mathematics yet. How long would this strange partnership last? The answer was chilling. Until your species masters honesty.
By 1966, the terms of the trade agreement were firmly established. 1 crate of fresh produce for 1 demonstration of impossible technology. The Pentagon allegedly began sending only married officers to the base. It seemed single men sometimes returned from their tours mesmerized, muttering about how the beings sang prime numbers. American technology leaped forward seemingly overnight. Suddenly we had radar-absorbent polymers and silent triangular drones. Hall's own shack was upgraded with a transmitter powered by a marble-sized object that never ever lost its charge.
He once pleaded for the secret to faster than light travel, but the teacher reportedly laughed, a sound like wind chimes, and replied, "We guard that technology as you guard your nuclear weapons." They did, however, provide inertial dampeners. These allowed F-4 Phantom jets to pull 20 Gs of force without crushing their pilots. At Nellis Air Force Base, the technology was officially designated as pilot safety harnesses. Each month, the Tall Whites received their 400 pounds of strawberries and 12 gallons of ice cream. In return, we received exotic alloys that allowed the SR-71 Blackbird to cruise at over 2,200 miles per hour without melting. It was perhaps the sweetest deal ever struck for human advancement. It all sounds utterly unbelievable, doesn't it? When Charles Hall finally published his story, he did so as a science fiction series titled Millennial Hospitality. Skeptics say this was a clever move to protect his military pension while profiting from a wild tale. They correctly point out that he has no physical proof, no alien souvenirs, no photographs, and a convenient excuse for every piece of missing evidence. NASA officials have flatly stated that anti-gravity technology, as he describes it, would violate the known laws of physics. Psychologists have suggested his experiences could be vivid hallucinations brought on by the combined pressures of sleep deprivation, isolation, and Cold War paranoia. And yet, two other military veterans who served at Nellis, Richard Sipe and another anonymous sergeant, later signed sworn affidavits describing pale giants on the gunnery range in 1967. Hall's own weather logs, obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request, show 112 days of anomalous readings that perfectly match the timeline of events in his manuscript. The base commander at the time, Colonel Robert E. Buck Smith, took an early retirement, moved to Oregon, and has consistently refused all interviews, citing his national security oath until death. Even staunch debunkers are forced to concede that the recorded wind shear, humidity spikes, and temperature inversions Hall documented align perfectly with later declassified tests of advanced experimental aircraft. There may not be a smoking gun, but the paper trail is undeniably stubbornly persistent. Hall's standard response to his doubters is simple: check the strawberries. And indeed, commissary logs from Nellis Air Force Base show that during his tenure, orders for strawberries to his tiny one-man outpost surged by 400%. He also claims he was allowed to keep a small shard from one of their power crystals. When investigators later asked to see it, he presented them with an empty film canister, explaining that the teacher had reclaimed it on his last day. This, Hall argues, doesn't prove he's a liar. It proves the Tall Whites always settle their accounts. If the entire story is just fantasy, then why did the Air Force quietly add a new regulation in 1968 titled Interaction with Non-Earth Sapients? A paragraph that appears in no other military branch's manual. And why did a 1974 CIA briefing accidentally declassified with the JFK files in 2017 mention biological entities exceeding 8 feet under the codename Ice Cap? It seems every attempt to debunk the story only uncovers another corroborating document, suggesting the simplest explanation may not be a hoax, but a secret so well kept that not even Congress has the key. While Area 51 has captured the public's imagination, Hall insists the real action was always at Range 3, a remote salt basin completely hidden from all public highways. Satellite imagery of this area reveals 5 hangars that were constructed in 1958, mysteriously demolished in 1972, and then rebuilt in 2002, a timeline that curiously aligns with reported waves of tall white activity. The underground facility is said to have 9 levels. Levels 1 through 3 are for human personnel, 4 through 6 are shared laboratories. Level 7 is for the cryo storage of their heat-sensitive children. Level 8 is a conference area with a 30-foot table, and Level 9 is a launch bay with a magnetic rail to catapult their scout craft silently into the sky. Workers are reportedly flown in from Las Vegas on the infamous unmarked Janet Airlines. They land on a runway that only becomes visible when a specific secret sequence of strobe lights is activated. Hall says he flew on these windowless 737s twice a month, but never learned a single pilot's name or saw a passenger manifest. He is convinced this very same base is now being used to reverse engineer gravity amplifiers powerful enough to lift 40 tons. If that's true, then every rocket launch since the Apollo era might just be public theatre, a spectacular display of smoke and fire to distract us from the real vehicles that leave in total silence. Once you know the story, you start to see echoes of the tall whites everywhere in pop culture. The lanky, graceful aliens in Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind seem pulled directly from Hall's descriptions. The 1980s TV show V featured tall, Nordic-looking alien negotiators. And in The X-Files, a character quips about vanilla ice cream in a way that feels like a direct nod to those strange commissary receipts. Online, the archetype of the Nordic alien, tall, blonde, telepathic beings who prefer cold, high-altitude climates, is a direct reflection of Hall's blueprint. They have become the antithesis of the menacing Greys. They're portrayed as gentle giants, cosmic guardians guiding a species that is still playing with fire. Hall's books continue to sell, often categorised as both fiction and non-fiction, with reviews split evenly between those who believe in a vast cover-up and those who see a compelling coping mechanism. Either way, the archetype is now permanently ingrained in our culture. If you ever encounter a 9-foot-tall Scandinavian in the desert moonlight, you'll know to offer them fruit and maintain eye contact, the exact etiquette the teacher taught Charles Hall. In 2023, the Pentagon relaunched its UFO reporting office, this time rebranding the phenomena as Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, or UAPS. Just 6 weeks later, 14 new sightings were reported over the Nellis Range, describing elongated humanoids gliding above cactus height without propulsion. A Las Vegas news station, KLAS, even aired a short clip of the phenomenon, but the segment was removed from their website within 24 hours. Remnants of the broadcast, however, still circulate on Reddit. Hall, now 83 and living in Albuquerque, believes this surge in activity means the tall whites will go public before the decade's out. He bases this prediction on their mathematics. They believe that every 60 years, human technology reaches a point where the cost of secrecy outweighs the benefits of disclosure. The 1890s brought us radio, the 1950s brought us nuclear power, the 2010s brought us quantum computing. The next threshold is around 2030, and Hall expects disclosure will be carefully framed as the arrival of benevolent elders to prevent global panic. Wall Street may already be sensing a shift. Obscure online investment forums are buzzing about gravity-related patents filed by mysterious Nevada-based LLCs, all fronted by retired military colonels. If this story has opened a door to a new world of possibilities, be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell for our next investigation. And leave a comment below. What single piece of evidence would it take to convince you that the tall whites are real? Charles Hall departed Nellis Air Force Base in 1967 with a firm handshake and a chilling warning from his superiors. Tell the story too loudly and ears will close around your throat. He spent the next 20 years in civilian radar operations, quietly drinking vanilla milkshakes and flinching whenever a shadow fell the wrong way. In 1988, a psychiatrist treating him for PTSD placed him under hypnosis. The recordings from those sessions are said to match his published books perfectly, right down to the specific details and the lingering smell of ozone. Those tapes now sit in a safe deposit box in Albuquerque, with strict instructions that they only be opened upon official presidential confirmation of extraterrestrial contact. His children grew up thinking their father simply told the most imaginative science fiction bedtime stories. It wasn't until strangers began emailing them aerial photographs of Range 3 that they began to wonder if his stories were actually an autobiography. Today, Charles Hall builds model airplanes. He fits them with magnetic levitation landing gear, and as he works, he sometimes hums the 5-note musical greeting of the tall whites. He remains absolutely certain he will live to see disclosure, and when that day comes, he plans to simply smile and say, check the strawberries. I left you 4 volumes of breadcrumbs. So that's the story. A desert bright enough to blind you, and a secret cold enough to burn. It's the account of a single airman that somehow connects vanilla ice cream to stealth bombers, strawberry shipments to interstellar trade agreements, and 9-foot-tall visitors to tunnels buried deeper than our oldest nuclear test sites. We can't bring a tall white into a television studio for an interview, but we can examine requisition forms that still seem to carry the faint scent of ozone and berries. Perhaps in our modern age, that is the true currency of belief. Not an alien body on a gurney, but a paper trail so consistent that it hums with its own strange energy. Does a secret alliance with pale giants truly lie hidden within dusty produce orders and redacted flight logs? You now have the dates, the documents, and the questions that linger in the dark. You must decide for yourself what stands taller, the evidence or the profound silence that blankets it like the desert stars.